In our Book Lovers Corner today, we're talking to a New Haven-born author who used his Italian heritage to pen his new novel, Juliana's Way. Albert Parillo joins us here on Style today. Welcome to the show, Albert. Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Before we get into the book, let's talk a little bit about your background. So you grew up right here in New Haven.
Yeah, I was born in Fairhaven, actually, and I moved to Worcester Street when I was about 4 years old, and spent all of my growing up period there until I went away to college, and then the service, and then New York City, and I never came back really.
But you got your start over in Worcester
All the
Square.
start was here, yes.
And it's such a unique neighborhood. Why don't we explain that to our viewers who might not be familiar?
The Worcester Street area? Well, it's really a whole another cultural phenomenon as far as I'm concerned. It was a neighborhood. All of us were on a first name basis, no matter how old you were, which is completely opposite the kind of area I live in now. We all worshiped together, ate together. We celebrated all of the holidays with big block parties, and it was terrific. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Great way to grow up, right?
It is, absolutely.
And you were able to take your experiences and kind of transfer them over to Juliana's.
That's exactly right.
So start us off with her character.
Juliana was born in Amalfi, where my grandparents are from, and at the urging of her incredible grandmother, who, despite a lack of formal education, was an incredibly bright woman, who saw in her granddaughter tremendous potential. And with her, a Scottish school teacher who comes to Amalfi to teach, and the pastor of her church, they said, this child is really something special, and she needs to go to a place to get the education that she needs in order to pursue her dreams. And the one place to go to is America. And the America that we're talking about is Amalfi, where Juliana's uncle had moved 3 years prior to when Juliana leaves for America. And he and his wife set up in the Worcester Street area.
And that's where she came eventually, right?
Exactly, to live with them.
And originally she wanted to be an architect.
An architect because of her grandfather, who was at the time the most important mason in Amalfi. And if anybody's ever been to Italy, they will know that every street corner is a work of art.
Sure.
And I love the place. We're going there next month, as a matter of fact. But it's a terrific place. And eventually he and his brother have a construction company. And Juliana falls in love with buildings because they represent the realization of dreams.
Sure. A new life for her probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. But there's a turn when she gets to Connecticut and decides that there are other things that interest her, food being one of them.
Got it.
And,
but she is able to make a career out of it, more or less, right? Takes a little turn, but it all turns out great.
Exactly. I mean, she had been accepted into a college in New York to go to on a full scholarship. She had gone to grammar school where I went to grammar school, St. Michael's School, and then went to Hill House instead of going to the Sacred Heart Academy on Green Street, where her guardians wanted her to go to, thinking that she would really be better off under the guidance of nuns rather than a mixed culture. But she found that in going to Hill House, she met all these different kinds of people. And she said, I need to assimilate in order, if I'm going to realize what I want out of life, I need to get along with people who are different than I am. And that's exactly what happened. And
it's a great life lesson in itself right there, right?
Exactly.
So she kind of turns into this, you kind of compared her to Martha Stewart, if there was one back then.
Martha Stewart came in the third part of the book. Which I never really expected to do. It just developed naturally, which is how I wrote the book. I didn't write from an outline. I kept discovering things along with the reader.
Kind of took had a mind of its own,
Mind of its
would you
own,
say?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what happens. After 7 years, you need a lot of mind of its own events to make this thing work. She had always been at the foot of her grandmother and cooking these wonderful meals in Amalfi. When she got to America, she continued to do this cooking for her family. And pretty soon, she does, in a very interesting scene that I think readers will love, she substitutes for the cooking, the cook at the convent on Green Street,
Okay.
where they're entertaining the bishop who comes from Hartford.
Oh, that was her big break, right?
This is exactly,
I get it.
this
Okay.
turns out to be the big break, because the nun is sick, and they know about Giuliana at 12 years old being this incredible cook. And she comes in and she makes this meal for the bishop and his Monsignor, his assistant, and it blows them away.
Well, she has we don't want to give the book away,
That's true.
but
That's
she
true.
has a lot of adventures and really grows into her own.
Correct.
And I think it's great, though, because so many people from this area can relate to
Absolutely.
coming from Amalfi. And they're sister cities, New
That's
Haven
right.
and Amalfi. So, of course, you could find it all in the book. Something you want readers to take away from it?
What I want is for them to know that the American immigrant experience is what we are all about, all of us. And now, especially at this stage where they're talking about these immigration laws, et cetera, one can argue, I don't want to make this a political discussion, but we're all immigrants at heart. And that's what made this country so fantastically great.
Very good.
The other thing I want to do is that I grew up, I have a wife and 3 daughters of my son came along later on. I'm a great proponent of helping women, believing that women deserve every single opportunity that those who are male have, and should be paid equally as well, and do whatever they want to do.
And I think we find out that Juliana does a little bit of that.
She
in
does
this
a little
book.
bit of that.
All
She
right.
does a little bit of that.
Albert, where can we find it?
You can find it through the publisher, Author House. You can go online, all the traditional places, your local bookstore,
Very good.
Amazon,
Just about
Barnes and
everywhere.
Nobles,
All right.
whatever.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing the story with us.
Thank you for having me, Teresa. It's been a pleasure.
Our pleasure.